Okay, so today would have been day 2 that Colin was in the hospital. I don't know if I've said this before or not, but this year the dates line up on the same days. So, like yesterday was the day he overdosed on a Thursday, and so everything's kind of lining up the same way this year. Um, the story that I want to tell you today kind of explains our relationship a little bit. So, a lot of times, whenever we lose someone that we love, we only focus on the positive and the good and the, oh, they were so wonderful. And he was, but he wasn't perfect. And I think the stories that I like to hear the most when people will talk to me about him or share, a memory of him are the real ones, the ones where he was a pain and he could get under your skin. You loved him in spite of it. Like there was nothing he could do that would ever make me love him less. I mean, that was just not even possible. Like on our worst day, I would have died for him. And I have no doubt that he knew that. And I knew that was true for him too, that he would be there for me no matter what. He was a little bit more merciful, and like he saw no wrong in me, no fault ever. Even if I did something wrong, like he would defend it to the end of time. Where I'm more the realistic, like critical, just say what it is, that kind of person. And so one thing that if you don't know me very well, you might not know about me, and some people find it hard to believe, but I can be a little bit scrappy. And I've just kind of always been that way. I don't know if it's like in my blood or if it was growing up with 3 brothers and uncles and cousins, and they were all kind of like that. And so I had to learn how to defend myself. I'm not really like that anymore, but I think if I needed to be, I would be. If someone's messing with someone that I love, then I jump to their defense really quickly. And so with Colin, he had this knack for pushing me to the end of my rope and then just a little bit beyond to get me to just come unhinged on him. And he was really good at it. I mean, he knew how to push my buttons and he found it hilarious, which just made it that much worse. And so I don't know how long Kevin and I had been together. We were probably 15, maybe 16 when this happened. And I don't even know what Colin did. I don't remember at all because it was daily. He was doing something to aggravate me. But whatever he did this day really made me mad. And so we were fighting and arguing, and I finally just hauled off and started hitting him. I'm not proud of this, but this was our relationship, and it's just how it was. He was just a big teddy bear. Like he didn't have a fighting bone in his body. It was just his mouth. And so whenever I would fly off the handle, I didn't weigh anything. I was half his size. He would just laugh, and it would just make me that much more angry. And so I chased him down the hallway and was on him, and Kevin pulled me off, and then he ran into his bedroom and shut the door and locked it. And so I was beating on the door trying to get in, and Kevin grabs me from behind and like pins my arms back, trying to keep me from hurting my hands trying to get in the door. And so naturally I pick up my legs and pin Kevin against the wall, and I put my feet through Colin's bedroom door. I couldn't do that today if I tried because I have no core strength from having 4 C-sections, but then it wasn't even a thought in my head. I just picked my feet up and through the door they went. I think I was planning on kicking the door open, not putting a hole through it, but that's what happened. And I will never forget his face on the other side of that door, because he was like, Dad's gonna kill us. He was laughing and was pretty impressed that I just kicked a hole through the center of the door, and it was up high. Like, took Dad a while to figure out how exactly the hole got there. And then the fight was over because we were all laughing and scared to death of what Dad was going to do whenever he came home and found a massive hole in the bedroom door. And so that was just kind of the story of our lives from the beginning. He liked to push my buttons, and I was a little bit feisty and would haul off and hit him. And I mean, we would get into some knockdown, drag out fights. He would hit me back. Like, it wasn't always one-sided. But as we got older and he got bigger, he wouldn't lay a hand on me, but he would just laugh at me if I would get mad. And that was probably really the last, like, fist fight that we got into. We didn't carry that on for a whole lot longer after that. And so, not really that scrappy anymore. I still probably have the thought in my head more than I should that someone needs to be punched, but I don't do it. And so you can thank the Lord for that. I've made progress in that area. But whenever this happened and Colin was laying in the hospital, I wanted to track down whoever helped him get the drugs. And so on this day, that's what I did. I sat and I poured through his phone and I started calling people that he had recently called, that none of them answered me. I was texting them. I was threatening people. I mean, I was going to find them and I was going to make them pay. And I was like set on, I mean, I wasn't going to hurt anyone, but like, I wanted them to be arrested. I wanted them to have a conversation with me and to realize what they had done and what they had taken from me, or what I thought they were going to be taking from me. And then on this day in the hospital, the doctors were talking to us about, we were hearing more about his condition and how serious it was and what the treatment plan was going to look like. And so they were trying to figure out when they could amputate his leg. They thought they had restored blood flow back to his arm, but there was no idea on how much use he would have because of nerve damage and muscle damage and things like that. But his leg was completely gone. And so that never happened. He was never stable enough for them to do that surgery. Thankfully, we didn't have to ever, witness him going through that. And so not a lot happened on this Friday. We sat and we waited. I filled out paperwork for insurance and things like that. And people were coming in, friends and family. And I remember just looking at people as they came in, but it's like I wasn't there. I was just kind of off in my own world. It was like it was me and Jesus just kind of hanging out during this time. And I was just talking to him and trying to figure out what's the plan here. I wasn't really questioning God and why did you allow this to happen? Like, how could you let this happen? I was never angry with God. I don't know why. Like, I know that's kind of a common thing, but I more just wanted to know, okay, if you're going to take me through this, if this is going to happen, then what is the plan here? Because you can't be taking my brother for no reason. And I need to see something come out of this because this is going to be awful. And I just spent a lot of time just me and God. There were people all around. I was still taking care of Harper, who was the biggest pain that she could possibly be during that time. We had a Moses basket that she would sleep in, and we would tie it up. And I'm pretty sure Erin needed shoulder surgery from swinging Harper in this basket, trying to get her to go to sleep and trying to keep her asleep, because the second you set her down, she would wake up and she'd start crying again. But I needed that distraction. And really, I mean, she got me through the next year just being Harper. And she's been that kind of, I don't want to say distraction, like my kids aren't just a distraction, but I cannot tell you how each of them have helped me heal through losing him over the last 11 years. But Harper was a really big part in that for the first year because she was a baby and I was just trying to, I had to take care of her. She forced me to get up and to keep doing the things that I normally did. And so that day we just sat and we waited and not a whole lot happened. They talked to us about the process they were going to do where they were going to put him in a hypothermic state, and this was to try to salvage and repair his heart because of all the trauma that it had been through. And so I think that they started that process on Friday. They started cooling him off, and it was a slow thing that they did over the course of hours. And then when they got his body to the temperature they wanted it at, he had to stay that way for a while. I don't remember how much time he had to stay there, and then they would rewarm him. And so that was a pretty scary point because we didn't know how he was going to react to it. It could have killed him. And so we just waited, and some friends stayed that night with my mom so that she wasn't alone. They stayed at the hospital, and we put my mom in a hotel, but they were there just in case they needed to go get her. And that was just a day of accepting the state that he was in and coming to terms with what we were facing and hearing all the possible outcomes. None of them really looked good, but there was still a little bit of hope that maybe he would come out of this. And so that was what we tried to cling to, was just hope. And so it was me I really just sat in prayer constantly, and I can't even explain, I didn't even know that I could have that kind of access to God. And in that moment, I depended on him fully, and I had to. And thankfully, he's a God who saw me in that moment, and he feel like he just came down and he sat with me and held me and helped me get through those days. And so I'll share a little bit more tomorrow.